Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Civil Grand Jury of Los Angeles County, Los Angeles County Civil Grand Jury's podcast. And today we are talking with Sam Dodds, president of the Los Angeles County Civil Grand Jury Association. We'll be talking on the subject of how citizens can make a citizen complaint form and submit it to the civil grand jury. All right? So I'm going to welcome Sam and turn it over to him. Please go on, Sam.
Hi, good afternoon. The civil grand jury has 23 members, and they obviously can't think of every subject that might be worthy of an investigation by them. So there is a vehicle for any resident of LA County to submit an issue to the civil grand jury, and it's done using what is called the citizen complaint form. Only one issue can be identified on the civil complaint form, but you can submit as many as you want. Where is this form located? It's located on the Los Angeles County website at the address shown, but the easiest way to find it is search the web for Los Angeles County Civil Complaint Form, and then a link will come up. You can use Yahoo or whatever you want and find it that way.
Okay, now here is the form, or the link to the form, the address to the form. Are you going to put that up now?
Yeah, I'll put it up now.
Just hold it there for a few moments. Actually, you can't hold it that close. Hold it back to you because it's not in focus when you're there.
Oh, okay.
So that's why we're going to have to do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, put that down. And okay, so now, are we going to see a copy of the form? Do you have a copy of the
Yes, I
form?
have a copy of the form.
Okay, will you put that up, please? Thank you.
And we'll discuss the form in a few seconds.
Yes, in fact, when I was on the civil grand jury 2024 to 2025, I did see one of those forms because I had some citizens' complaints to make. But as a civil grand jury member, I could not make the complaint. So someone who is not on the civil grand jury has to actually make the complaint. Now, will you give us the form? Show us the form, please.
Here's the form. It's kind of hard to see, but we'll fix that.
Yeah, we're going to put an insert in, we hope. This is our first one, first show, so we'll see how it works. Okay. Now, this tell me the history of the civil grand jury, if you don't mind.
Oh, the civil grand jury has a long history in California. It goes back to when California first became a state. And wanted some vehicle for citizens to monitor, if you will, the performance of their county government. So this vehicle was submitted in some counties. The civil grand jury is combined with the criminal grand jury. In some counties, it's not. In Los Angeles County, there's a separate civil grand jury and a separate criminal grand jury.
Can you tell me, the civil grand jury you're saying started around 1849? Is that when it became a state?
Frame.
So it's been there, and it is separate from the criminal grand jury.
Absolutely.
Right. And what is the job of the civil grand jury?
The civil grand jury is basically designed to be a watchdog on government agencies within the specific county that they're serving in. They can investigate actions of any department of the Los Angeles County, They can investigate any actions, operations, processes, and procedures of any of the 88 incorporated cities within LA County. They can investigate the same types of things for any of the 100 or so school districts within LA County, and they can investigate the same type of things for any joint agency that includes LA County.
That's interesting. So I guess that on the civil grand jury, you have about, 10 lawyers who sit around a desk and then go out and investigate things? Is that how it works?
No, no. Obviously, there are some lawyers that do serve on the civil grand jury, but it is open to any citizen over the age of 18 in LA County, with the caveat they cannot be serving as a government official for the county or the city or the school board, and they cannot have been convicted of a felony.
Interesting. So the jury that I was on was made almost entirely of retirees, and these were people from a broad range of jobs, of professions. You had one guy there who worked for the YMCA. He helped build the buildings in the YMCA. You had some people there who were, one guy, as a matter of fact, our foreperson was, what did he do? He was an acoustical engineer. So he would go around in his job to various places and make sound better. So I guess what he did was go to places like the Dolby Theater and made sure that the sound was right. Or he'd come up to the Disney Concert Hall and make sure that the sound was right. Almost anybody can be.
Anybody. And the way you have to do that is you have to apply for a position on the civil grand jury. And that form is also online, and you can search for civil grand jury application form and find that. And then it goes to the Superior Court judges, and you will get interviewed by a Superior Court judge at random. And there's something like several hundred Superior Court judges in LA County that could possibly interview you, and then each one of them gets to select a candidate to go in the lottery for the actual position on the civil grand jury, and then at the appropriate time near the end of the previous civil grand jury's term, they do a lottery and select members at random, and then alternates for in case somebody drops out because they get sick or die or move.
I was talking with a friend of mine. She was my editor and friend, and she's retired, about 80 years old. And I was telling her about the civil grand jury, and I was working on it, and her response was, "Sounds like a tremendous waste of time." So what I would like to know is what actually happens to these reports and things like that. Do they actually make a difference? Do you have any examples of them making a difference?
Yes, they do make differences. In fact, in one of the past civil grand juries wrote a report on the daily per diem for the civil grand jury, making the assertion that it was way too little, way under what the minimum wage is, and that did help because in the past year the pay has been raised from $60 a day to $80 a day, and with the idea that it would go up further in the future. There have been instances where somebody complained about the Quimby fees not being used for park purchase. And
what is a Quimby fee?
It's a fee put on developers when they put a housing or apartment or business development in a city. They have to pay a certain fee called a Quimby fee that is supposed to support the development of parks in that area.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I know that when I was on the jury this past year, one of the things that I suggested was that rats were in my apartment building and they were going in my car and eating the car wires. Well, it turns out this had happened to some other people. And while I had done research before I joined the jury on this, I was not allowed to be actually on the committee that did the investigation. But ultimately, a full investigation was done, and we did publish a report on a county-wide presence of rats in Los Angeles. And just to give you an example, I have here in this bag, sorry to do this in front of you, should have had it out before. This is a copy of, I don't have any lights on it, so I'm going to have to put this up. Okay, yeah, we'll have to do an insert on that too. On the latest, that's the 2024 report. That's the latest report.
That is the only way any investigation can be formally reported. If somebody suggests a topic for an investigation and it is not approved by the civil grand jury, then you can't talk about what the civil grand jury can't discuss things that were suggested but or recommended but not approved.
Yeah, you can only. Well, I made a mistake because the camera was on me while you were talking. So sorry about that. So, yes, you can only, if you're a member of the civil grand jury, first of all, it is a secret grand jury. You are sworn to secrecy. You cannot go home and tell your spouse. You cannot tell your children. You can't tell the person down the street because you take an oath to keep it secret, even after your term is over. The only things that you can talk about are the things that are in the final publication of the report. And my understanding is that it's very important. There were people who, in past juries, have gotten thrown off of a jury because they were heard speaking about it on the subway, for instance.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely correct. The proceedings of the civil grand jury are secret. You can't talk about subjects that were proposed but not accepted as a subject for investigation. You can't talk about the actual vote on any one report. You can't talk about how any individual might have voted on any report. You can't talk about people that were interviewed for the reports that aren't specifically identified in the reports. In fact, one of the cardinal rules of the civil grand jury is that as you interview people, you have to keep their identities confidential unless they are elected government officials. And then you can identify, the supervisor of your district or the governor of the state of California. They can be identified, but nobody else can be identified in the reports themselves. Now, obviously, if you're talking about, say, the Los Angeles County Department of Public Works, people know that you probably interviewed the director of the Department of Public Works, but you really shouldn't identify that person by name.
And what about title? Can you identify them by title?
What we've done in the past, when I served on the civil grand jury, is tried not to identify their specific title, but you could say like a senior official within this department or a manager within this department, because the only person who really could be identified is the one at the very top, because if in fact you identified a problem with some other individual in the department, you don't want to be identified as the person who gave that information out to the civil grand jury.
Right. And in fact, my understanding is that as soon as these reports are published, the report is sent to the departments that were interviewed and where research was done, and it's sent to the press, I understand. So I understand that places like the Los Angeles Times and the TV news networks have an interest in that. Is that the case?
They have a very strong interest in what the civil grand jury had to say. Now, they're not interested in every report that the civil grand jury did, but if you've identified issues with a government agency, they would be very much interested in that. And in fact, the reports at the end of the term are actually hand-delivered to the people who have to respond to the report, recommendations in the report, and they have to be signed for, so you make sure that people who are supposed to respond to these can't say, I never got it.
And one of the reasons for that is that these department heads and the people in the department are expected to respond in the following years to what happens. They have to respond in writing. Is that right?
They have to respond in writing. County agencies have to respond within 60 days of the release of the report, and other agencies have 90 days. Mm-hmm. But basically, within 90 days, you should have responses to every recommendation for every report that's in the formal report.
Okay, so how is this enforced? Suppose they just don't respond and say, forget the civil grand jury. They don't have any power.
Well, actually we do, but there is a committee on the civil grand jury. Sometimes it's called the Continuity Committee. Sometimes it's called something else, that has the authority and obligation to make sure that all the recommendations are responded to.
Okay, so now what happens with the press? My understanding is that when the press does get a hold of one of these booklets and they find something of interest, they don't call up the civil grand jury and ask for your name so that you can tell them all you learned. How does the press know what to do?
They can only read what's in the report, and the report will identify the agencies that have to take action, usually by title. The director of the LA County Department of Works shall do something, and they can follow up with that.
Well, in that follow-up, can they say, this civil grand jury member so-and-so actually interviewed me and he said the wrong thing, or it's the civil grand jury's fault that these things happened?
No, they cannot. Your oath of confidentiality as a civil grand jury member extends way beyond your term, and you're not supposed to respond to interview requests about the specific report that you may be identified with, which you will be in the report. It'll tell who was on the committee that investigated and authored that report. But other than they're not supposed to interview, because you can't tell them anything beyond what's in the actual report. If it's in the report, you can say it's in the report.
Well, my experience this time was that I was on what they call investigative committees, and these are different from standing committees. Mm-hmm. And the standing committees really are not in the final report. They're not in there at all. Mm-hmm. And both of the committees, investigative committees that I was on, none of their reports were used. Okay. So my name is not in the booklet at all.
Well, then it might be in one place, because usually there's one page that identifies all the members of the civil grand jury for that year. So your name would be identified as a member, but nothing beyond that. If none of the reports that you were on the investigative committee for were approved, you would never be identified as somebody who investigated subject A when subject A wasn't an approved subject for a report.
Right. Okay, well, Mr. Dons, I appreciate your coming on today. We're about finished for the day. And I'd like to know if there's anything that you'd like to say to tidy up to end this.
Well, I think one thing we need on the civil grand jury, in my humble opinion, is a wider diversity of age groups. It seems to me, from the people I've known on the last 5 civil grand juries, a great majority, 95%, are retired people, 65, 70, 75 years old. I know of only 3 people who were of, quote, working age that were on, and we need more of them. They have different perspectives than retired people and have different issues they're interested in.
Right. As a matter of fact, one of the things that's being proposed now is that the civil grand jury and perhaps this body, what's the name of our body? Civil Grand Jury Association?
The Civil Grand Jury Association.
Right. Is suggesting that we partner with community colleges in order to encourage those students to come, and perhaps they can get college credit, actually, for being on the civil grand jury.
Right. And especially if they want to do like a gap year, or they're just taking night classes and really and aren't working. This would be an ideal situation. You get paid a little bit of money. You learn an awful lot about government agencies and maybe find a contact that you can start working for that department at some point.
All right. Well, thank you very much,
Yeah.
Mr. Dodds, Sam Dodds, president of the Los Angeles County Civil Grand Jury Association. And we will look forward to seeing you, our viewers, on the next time.
Yeah.
This is Jesse Rhines signing off. Thank you very much.